Hello, 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 hello. We are back. We are back for another Holistic Health Over 50. We are talking to women over 50 about their secrets, the 5 things they do for their health: mental, physical, nutritional, spiritual, and sexual. Okay. So I want you to stay until the end because we always ask the sexual part at the end. So stay to the end if you want to hear uh, what my guest, Sharon D. Brown, has to say about her 5 holistic things that she does for being over a woman over 50. I again am Reverend Dr. Brooke Brimm, or you can just call me Brooke Brimm. This is my channel, Holistic Health Over 50. And so let's get started. Hello, Sharon. How are you?
I am so good. It's such a pleasure of being here and seeing you again.
Yes, 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 yes. Sharon and I were roommates. This is how we met. We were roommates back at the Black Yoga conference in Black Yoga Teachers Conference
hmm
at Kripalu back before the pandemic. And we have been, we were bonded at that event, and we have been online buddies ever since. And so I'm really happy to have you. Introduce yourselves. Tell us all about you.
Yeah. So for me, again, everyone, my name is Sharon D. Brown. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. My name is Sharon D. Brown, and I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've been in the field for like over 2 decades. And what I can say is that by being in mental health, it has taught me so much about self-care and about holistic, which has led me to pretty much, shall I say, step out on faith to be able to talk to entrepreneurs and especially women and leaders of how to take care of themselves. Because as females, we don't do enough of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. So is that the kind of content? Do you post content like that for self-care?
I really do take in a holistic approach. And my
Mm-hmm.
approach, I'm going to say, is probably a little different because a lot of times some people may be thinking about, I kind of call it the luxury of self care,
Mm-hmm.
like pretty much the bubble baths and the massages and the chocolate. And even though all of those things are a part of self care, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, self care is more about what it takes for you to get to your greatness, what it takes for you to
Mm-hmm.
be authentic. It's more the path to of who you are, of being, your whole self, and it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
steps. So it's really about self-development. And if anything that I've learned on a personal basis, because just because we have degrees in these areas, we're not exempt for anything.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that it really taught me is that we don't prepare like for the adversity and challenges. It's almost like the rites of passage. You know what I mean? It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like when it comes to disagreement, how do you teach a child how to deal with that? Not just
Right.
how to do it, but how to deal with the emotional vulnerability and everything that comes
Mm-hmm.
along with that, of having the courage and that tingling feeling that happens in your body. Because what I've
Mm.
learned, even within myself, we don't know what to do with that because nobody told us.
Right. Wow. So speaking of body, why don't we just get right into tell me what you do for your physical health? What holistic thing do you do for your physical health?
Yeah, I would say it's twofold. One of the main thing that I do for my physical health is yoga. And restorative yoga, and I call it the stillness, is what I love, but I have to also do what I need,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes
Mm-hmm.
to when it comes to the movement. So
Right.
when it comes to the movement, even though you can do like the asanas and things of that, but definitely when it comes to walking. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I have some strength training, but I do have to say, even though I'm all about self care, but that is one area that I am working on improving because we know that
Mm-hmm.
strength training, it is very important. And
Right.
let me tell you, I'm going to say this. This is a secret that I found when I did have personal trainers,
Mm-hmm.
is that I had, it pretty much allowed me to say this, is that yoga and personal training, well, in strength training really helps you with adversity. It helps
Mm.
you to work through adversity in and of itself. So that's another reason to incorporate strength training in your life as well.
Wow. Wow, that's a interesting I definitely can attest to yoga helping me through a tough time after my father passed. My father passed, I had an IRS lien, I was evicted wrongly, so I was going through a lot. That was in 2012. And so I would go to yoga 3, 4 hours a day just to get through the pain of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up
Mm-hmm.
writing a book about it, which I'll
Mm-hmm.
put in the description if anybody's interested. I have a book and a journal. Um, but really, yeah, I can attest to the yoga helping me through that hard time. Now, I'm going to tell you currently, this is 2024 and
Mm-hmm.
it is December. I'm currently going through a huge challenge in my family, huge health challenge. And so it's kind of taken a toll on all of us. Like we're at the beginning of the journey. And I have been making it a point to get to the gym and to weight train and just taking care of myself that way. And
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting that you would say that the lifting weights or strength training is so important for your mental, you know, health. Because I hadn't thought about it like that. I just knew that what happened what happened to me is I moved back to New Jersey a year ago, and it's a lot colder here than where I had been. I've been in the South for over 30 years. So I could feel that a little bit of arthritis was forming in my hips, but because I was in a warmer states, it wasn't like something that was a huge deal. And then when I moved into the colder area, like I could get up in the morning and feel super stiff and a lot of pain and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Oh, I have to take my strength training more seriously because, like
Mm-hmm.
you, I had been a yogi, and well, I'm still a yogi, right? And yoga is like a big part of everything that I was doing. And sometimes, if you don't incorporate the strength aspect of yoga, you just find yourself stretching, 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 which I think I was doing
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that, and maybe not enough strength. So I just recently really I I had been doing it, but I just recently joined the gym so I could take the strength training a lot more serious.
Mm-hmm.
And so because the cold is here, and I want to make sure I'm working on my hip and so I'm not in a lot of pain. So it is helping. And I would also say that it's helping with the challenge that I'm going through as well. So I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's not something that I thought about.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And pretty much for me, how it made me really associate, strength training with adversity is because I remember with my trainer at the time, they had me do some leg lift, and
mhm,
like they were like stacking on the weights, and I'm looking like, what is going on here? But in the midst of doing it, because like initially I had that little doubt in myself. It's like, oh, I don't know if I can lift this. It seemed really heavy. But in the process, I mean, literally as I was doing it, that's where I kind of felt, oh my, this is how we can work through the adversity. And then just all the pluses that strength training has just on your body, it's like with the weight and then the
mhm,
pressure on the body in and of itself, but also what it does to your mind and your confidence. It's very similar. I want to say like the concepts are very
mhm,
similar to yoga. It's just
mhm.
done in a different way.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think also just the idea of feeling strong in your body, in your core, in your muscles at this age of being over 50, I'm 55, and I think you're 55 as well,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
is the time that we have to start thinking about not falling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it becomes
Yes.
a really bad issue. It becomes a really, really big issue in your 60s, your 70s. your 80s especially. But the strength that you need to develop needs to happen now. The confidence
Yes.
that you need to have in your steps need to happen now, because I started noticing my thighs feeling weaker,
Mm-hmm.
because I drive a lot in my job. So I just started noticing some weaknesses, and I wanted to just feel stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes you sure in your step when you have
Mm-hmm.
that strength. So let's move
It
on
does.
to, yeah, nutrition. Tell me what do you do for your nutrition health?
Yeah, for my nutrition health, I had transitioned to pretty much plant-based vegan probably
Mhm,
now about 2 or 3 years ago. And
mhm,
even before I made the full transition, I want to say I was really almost there anyway, because I had been
mhm,
cut out, meat, especially like red meats and things like that. It just more so along life, just wanted to be healthy.
mhm.
And I do want to say, like, when it came to that transition, it just really was, it was almost like, yeah, that's the next step. Like when it was introduced to me,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this is really easy, because I really wasn't eating like that much fish and that much chicken or those two
Mhm,
things. And so when it came, you know, I just say it was an easier process. But one thing I want to say about that is, like when people hear like, oh, you plant-based, so you're vegan, and then they're like, oh, I can never do that. But what I encourage people is just to be curious with food, when it's made in a different
mhm,
way. And it's like, it can really make a really big difference. And the thing is that your taste bud really do change.
mhm. Right.
I had, maybe it happened maybe about a year ago. One of my friends had asked me to fix them some fish, and it really smelled good. It's like the seasoning I was putting in, and even though I wasn't eating fish, but I do have to say, I said, "Ooh, did this taste? I mean, this is smells so good. Let me eat it." Y'all, I ate that fish and got sick as a dog.
Right. You know what's funny? I have been, and I don't know if you know about my vegan channel and
Hmm.
vegan Instagram and all of that, and Facebook group, all of those things. But I have been what I still call myself plant dominant, right? Even though
Hmm.
I eat 100% plant based right now, which some would call vegan, but I eat vegan. But veganism is bigger than, it's politics and
Yeah,
activism
yeah,
and all
yeah.
this stuff. And I'm not there. So I eat 100% vegan. But I have been what I call plant dominant since 92, since a young person, since I guess I was 23. And I've been vegetarian, raw, all these things, pescatarian, uh, for a lot of that time. And when I went all the way 100% plant based, and I did it several times, like for 60, since 2012, I would do about 60 days of raw vegan, right? My husband and I
Hmm.
raw vegan for 60 days. But what I noticed is when I was eating 100% plant based, and I used to love fish, and I still, I mean, I guess I like the face. I don't really. I can tell you, I don't really, and I'm gonna tell you why. This is the story I'm getting at. I one time tried to eat fish after I had been 100% plant dominant, plant based for a while, and I could really just kind of smell, even though you have
Mm.
the seasonings and all that, I could kind of smell the rot. It
Mm.
kind of smelled dead to me. You know what I mean?
Okay,
And I
yeah.
don't mean to
Hmm.
disgust anybody who eats fish,
Hmm.
but because I had been away, it's sort of like speaking to your taste buds and your senses and all that change when
Hmm.
you take those things out of your diet. Because I had been away from fish for so long, I could taste the dead in it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
my husband was still eating fish, and hadn't been, but because it was date night, I went on and joined him, and I was like, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to ruin it for him, but I was like, ooh, I'm gonna stick to these vegetables. You know what I mean? I kind of just say anything. And then when he finally went all the way 100% plant dominant, he was like, yeah, I could smell the, that it smelled dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah. I noticed that a few years ago, but I didn't want to say anything to you because I didn't want to ruin it for you. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so that's just a thing, and that's not for anybody to feel like I certainly don't. I just like Sharon was telling you about her journey of back and forth. It's like a canoe. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying anybody needs to go 100% plant-based ever. However, we do need to add more plants into our diet. That's important. And that's just something that doctors research, everything shows. You cannot just be eating all kinds of meat all the time. You have to add a lot more plants into your diet. And one thing that Sharon said that's so important is being curious. And so that's a lot of things of what I try to do on my vegan channel. And I'll put it in the description if you're interested in going to that YouTube channel to see some of my vegan creations there, vegan soul food creations in specific. I like to encourage people to eat things, or I like to introduce things that people hadn't tried. Like maybe they never tried eggplant before, maybe they don't know what tofu tastes like, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm going to say one more thing that I noticed on, and I did a post about this on Instagram during the week, but I just have to say, um, a website that I go to all the time, Mind Body Green, that I've
Mm-hmm.
trusted for years. They did their forecasting for 2025, and I was so flabbergasted, disappointed, angry, saddened to see that one of the things that they said was eating animal protein, no, fueling your body from head to toe with animal protein is encouraged.
Mm.
Now, I get it that they're forecasting, but it also feels like to me that they'll be participating in that encouragement.
Yeah.
And it made me really sad because it goes against, I've been seeing, from Lizzo, who was a vegan, and then she was like, I added protein into my diet, which was really, when you were vegan, all vegetables are protein. So you were getting protein, right? But
Mm-hmm.
you're like, I added protein into my diet. No, you added animal protein into your diet, and you need to know the difference. And if you're going to choose any path of eating, you should know how to get things like your proteins, your carbs,
Mm-hmm.
all your vitamins and things like that, your B12, all of that. So my point is, I was very disappointed to see this idea of fueling your body head to toe. I mean, that's really a huge head to
Yeah,
toe.
it
That's a
really
huge
is.
red flag. With animal protein is encouraged, and I was just like, because of what 2025 is ushering in, it just feels like it's going to be a time of misinformation and disinformation, because that's definitely not where we should be going, not for the planet, not for our bodies, not for anything. We should definitely be, not saying you have to get rid of all of animal protein, but we should be moving into, as a world, and we are, not only should be, but we are moving into a space of eating more plants. If you want to fight things like diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, arthritis, inflammation, it's, what did they tell you to do? Eat more plants. You need more fiber for colon cancer. Eat more plants. So for this Mind Body Green, which is supposed to be a holistic site that promotes, holistic living, to say that's what they forecast, that was super weird to me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And disturbing. But we're going to, if you want to weigh in on it, you can, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, and the thing that I pretty much want to say about that, and I encourage people, is to do your own research. Like for those of us who are advocating for certain things, and even though I'm all about holistic, and however you approach things, test things out for yourself,
Right.
and to pretty much do your own research. Because I can remember, even like as a teenager and a young adult, let's say like when it came to eggs, when it came to oils, it's like I even noticed back then that they were flip flop, flip flop. And the main thing is make the decision for yourself. And with everything that we're talking about, it goes into your future self.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
in order for us to really change, especially for those of us as Black, in that when it comes to high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, strokes, and heart disease, we're up there when it comes to numbers. And so
Mhm.
everything that we're talking about, everything that Brooke advocate and that even I advocate for, it is like having a comfortable life isn't about doing everything that you want. It's
Mhm.
doing what's needed so that you can be healthy to
Right.
be happy.
Right. And on that, I'm going to move into, we did physical, did nutrition. Let's move into, hey, your specialty, mental health.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to mental health, and I would say, even though I am a therapist, I've been in the field for over 2 decades, but my own personal, I would say, experience and deep work really started probably about a decade ago.
Mhm.
And it started after a heartbreak. It's like, even though, like, after the heartbreak or during the heartbreak, I kind of, if anybody who follows me have heard me say it, I cried for 40 days and 40 nights. And really, it
Mhm.
was longer than that, but that was the intensity of it. But I knew that I was going to be okay. I was really hurt and heartbroken.
Mhm.
And I knew that therapy wasn't going to help because I was just in so much pain. And one of
Yeah.
the things that people don't talk about is the physical and the visceral effect of grief, of
Mhm.
pain, and it hurts
Mhm.
so much. And there are some
Mhm.
things that talking about it just not do, and sometimes you're not
Right.
ready for it at that time. So
Right.
that is how I got into yoga, because I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm exercising isn't helping me, my heart rate is up. And so I stepped into a yoga class, and then from there I was like, oh, I want more about yoga, and that's how I ended up in yoga teacher training. So instead about the mental health piece of it, and I kind of just want to tell this piece of the story, like
Mhm.
during time, and I was in yoga teacher training, um, in that I was just crying profusely, or just crying so much. And I got sick and tired of me crying. And so
Mhm.
one day I was like, okay, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so I
Mhm.
just went deep within myself. And then within that, I found peace. I didn't know what it was at the time, but
Mhm.
like in reflecting back, I was like, oh, and to make sure that people realize that meditation is a part of yoga. Because a lot of times, we
Mhm.
say meditation and yoga, and people think that it's separate. It's not. So
Mhm.
even though I was like in yoga teacher training, and it did help, but it was the meditation, even though I
Mhm.
started that path,
Right.
but it was really when I really sat down with it and really
Mhm.
went, I kind of call it, went within my soul, and then I
Mhm.
was calmed down. So that helped with my mental health. And there's things, but I kind of call it going 7 layers deep, be
Mhm.
reflective, because
Right.
when you are able to really look at yourself, talk to
Mhm.
yourself, have these
Mhm.
deep conversations, that's going to help you with your mental health. And of course, if you need to go to therapy or
Mhm.
to a life coach in different areas in your life, do those things as well. But I'm more of like, I come from, I'll say, my main message for people is, what are you doing? Even if you are in therapy, what are you doing before therapy? What are you doing during therapy? And what are you
Right.
doing after therapy? Because
Right.
that is going to impact you on a daily basis.
Right. Because if you think about, let's say you have to go to a dermatologist, right? Something happened to your skin, you have to go to a dermatologist. You visit the dermatologist tells you, take this cream, and doing this would help, and doing that would help, and blah, 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 right? And so, if all you ever did was go to your dermatologist appointments, and you just go to those appointments, and you just go to those appointments, and he keeps giving you advice, and he tells you what to do, but in between those, you're not applying your cream, you're not doing what he said do, You're not doing all the things that you know that you've read to do holistically. You're not doing any of those. You're just showing up at the dermatologist appointment, feeling that even if he spends a whole hour with you, but he's not, but just, but we're going to say, like, for talk therapy, 45 minutes to an hour. Let's just say that you got that undivided time, just as you would with the dermatologist. Do the stuff in the middle and before, the research, the applying of the cream, the doing the techniques, all the things that he said. It's the same thing with talk therapy. It's the same thing with going to a therapist. You just can't show up, talk for 40 minutes, an hour, and then feel like, now you're going to fix me, or now I'm fixed. No, 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 no. It's what Sharon says. You have to go deep inside. You have to do evaluation. You might have to do journaling, meditation, yoga, walking in nature, creating, whatever it's going to take for you to really start evaluating what's going on with you, because you have to be responsible for you. And it's not just that hour that you get in talk therapy, or that 45 minutes that you get in talk therapy, that's going to do it. Right? That is there to help you, to give you the ideas, to give you strength and things to think about, and ways and tools and techniques. But you got to apply them, just like it was if you had to go to the dermatologist.
Yeah, I really like that analogy as well.
Yeah. Because that's what I think a lot of people, when it comes to therapy, they don't realize that they need to be doing things all throughout. It's a whole journey, and just checking in with your talk therapist is just that. Okay, so this week I was blah, 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 blah. And what did you think? And I thought this. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let me think about that. You know what I mean? And let me go back and do some more work there. But you got to work. You got to work. It's not, people just think there's so much stigma about going to a mental health therapist. And then when I was doing that kind of work in my internship as a professional counselor, what I noticed is that people would just like drag themselves in, feel like I'm here now. Now you got to fix me. And that is not how it works. And that's the same thing when I do spiritual guidance as a minister, which is, very similar. I have a continuum. Like, if you just want to come in and you just want to do a talk dump, it's going to cost you a lot more per hour. But if you want to commit to like 8 weeks of work, and we're working together and you're doing your homework and all of that, then it's cheaper, because I'm committed with you to make this thing happen. You know what I mean? If you want to go through the journey. But if you just want to come and talk to somebody and get a dump and just get a few tools, and who knows if you're going to use it or not, or you just need it like a balloon to let out some of the energy, that's cool. It's going to cost you more money, because then who are you letting that energy out on? Me. Yeah. And if I don't feel like that I can, that we're moving together, and I have to worry about, I wonder if they work that out. Then I don't, you're going to cost me more money to put that energy on me. But if you're willing to go through the journey,
that's a really good concept.
Yeah. If you're willing to go through the longer journey and we work through it together and all of that, then it's less money per session. Anyway, oh no, we didn't do spiritual. What do you do for your spiritual health?
Yeah, pretty much for my spiritual health, in that I'm going to say it's twofold. Part of it is, doing some reading of different spiritual themes, and spending time with myself. I'm going to kind of put that into one. But the other thing is really finding different people that resonates with me, like for instance, someone like Michael Bernard Beckwith, and there's some other individuals as well. And to really just help me to see, like certain things. Because actually, when I started, I kind of call it my self-care journey. He was one of the ones that kind of came up on my feed. I'm like, oh, who is this person? Right. And then he really made me realize, I want to say, like, the difference between spirituality and religious, because it made me realize, oh, I didn't know it at the time, But even when I would attend, like I kind of call it regular church, I
Right.
felt like, I mean, they might have been a few preachers, like people can preach real good, but that
Mm-hmm.
connection just wasn't there. But he was
Right.
the first person that, like, if you're familiar with him, it's like,
Yes.
oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
why, you know what
And
I'm
I remember
saying?
now when you,
So,
yeah, when you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Um,
no, no, no.
when you mentioned Michael Bernard Beckwith, it made me think about our conversations earlier that I had forgotten about with Reverend Ike. That you,
Yeah.
yeah, we would talk about how we both would listen to Reverend Ike and we study Reverend Ike. So that just, when you said that, it just made me think, oh, okay, she's metaphysical. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, and
Hmm.
that, yeah, and that we would talk about Reverend Ike. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just pretty much just looking for different people and being open to
Hmm.
different aspects, because all of that, and because even when you were talking, I said, yeah, this is pretty much what yoga is all about. It's that
Hmm.
oneness. So
Hmm.
anything to really feed my soul, and where I can really, sit there and
Hmm.
identify of who I am, and to have the connection, like with myself. And even when it comes to the connection with myself, that's ongoing. You may think that you know yourself, but then sometimes if anybody who watched me, and I was like, yeah, I know that about myself. You know what I'm saying? So it really allows, just that deep reflection and becoming of one. And especially depends on, like what your individual belief is. But it has really allowed me to, I would just say, just look at the universe, the divine, and God just in a different way.
Yes, yes. And I think I personally feel like the more you know about you, the more you know about God. And also, the more that you study God, not religion, the more that you study God and
Hmm.
God's creations and all that, the more you learn about yourself. So you
Hmm.
can enter the kind of the circle in any place, either with studying God and it teaches you more about you, or studying you and it teaches you more about God. But it definitely is a oneness circle. That's my little spiel on that. So
Yeah, it really is.
lastly, yeah, lastly, because I know you're running out of time.
Hmm.
Lastly, we're going to talk about sexuality. But first, I want to ask you, are you partnered or unpartnered?
Unpartner.
Unpartnered. So tell me about your sexual health as an unpartnered woman over 50.
That is a really, really good question. What I'm going to say about that, it has been evolving. I'm
Mhm.
going to say that. And I want to share with someone, with others, and how much I hate to say this,
Mhm.
but I mean, unfortunately, it's a reality. There's a number of us who have had some type of sexual encounter, sexual abuse, sexual assault, or something.
Sexual
For some of
coercion.
us, it may have happened
Yeah.
at a young age. And literally, I mean, when I say literally, I had just came, I had a profound revelation just recently
Mhm.
regarding, sex and sexuality. Let's just say when you're thinking about sex in of itself, you think about like the other person, or something that you do, but it's really more than that, to be honest.
Mhm.
But just when you're thinking about whether, if you, I say, please yourself, or you're doing it with someone else, sometimes you may have, I just say, certain likes and preferences.
Mhm.
And one thing I would say is that sometimes when you have a early experience where you have been violated, and if you understand anything about the mind and the body, sometimes early experiences can get attached to you. You can think that it's your own, but it can be that experience.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
And so just saying, if someone is introduced to sex at a very early age, that there's a piece of that that can be attached, and you may not even think that it's related to it.
Right.
So even when it
Right.
comes to your own preferences, I would just say really sit with yourself. If you need to speak with someone, a therapist who specializes, and not just in sexual abuse, because sometimes regular therapy doesn't always get to kind of like, I'm going to say, the attachment piece of it, especially when it
Mhm.
comes to like physical pleasure in and of
Uh-huh.
itself. So when it comes to all of that, meaning it can impact you where you're doing something, but it's not even connected to you, but you think that it is, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yes.
You
No,
know,
absolutely. I
so
think that,
just
and I think that this is to what you're saying, and I know this is probably going to be a really, really unpopular opinion. And um, sometimes homosexuality is intertwined with that early negative sexual experience that kind of can't be
mm-hmm,
decoupled, right? Someone violated you, someone of the same sex violated you as a young person, and you can't kind of decouple. You haven't been able to decouple that um, that stimulation or that feeling of
mm-hmm.
love,
That's about it.
you
Mm-hmm,
know. Um, and it's not, so that's why for me, when people say I was born this way and so you have to accept me, what I really lean towards is no, you have to accept me because I am this way, because you may not
mm-hmm.
have been born that way, even though you want to say you were.
Yeah.
You
Mm-hmm,
are this way right now, and that's okay. And we need to 100% accept where you are. Um, but sometimes it's through violation that makes people come to where they, I am this way,
mm-hmm,
because we all show up differently, even if it's not with same sex. We all show up differently sexually based on, early experiences and things that happen
mm-hmm.
sexually when it wasn't really time yet. So we do show up differently, and we do have different desires and proclivities and all this because of
Mm-hmm.
early sexual
Yeah,
violations.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm. And
yeah.
it is what
But
it is. It is what it is. It's
yeah.
not, it's up to you whether you want to change or heal from that, or incorporate it, because in my opinion, any violation that we've experienced, whether it's sexual or this or that and the next thing, any pain or thing like that is meant for us to be a part of our journey. This is my opinion. Be a part of our journey and use
Mhm,
it in a positive way for ourselves and for the world. So
mhm,
just because, even if a young experience has caused you to be same sex, attracted to same sex, that's okay. That doesn't mean you have to wipe it out and do these kinds of things
mhm,
that would eliminate it. It could be that you're here to bring voice to that movement and to that to that aspect of life and to that aspect of society that we
mm.
choose to ignore or put away. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's my feel. Yeah. On that.
Yeah, and so what I would say, like regarding sexuality at this point
Mhm.
in my life, it's more so of exploring, and more so, I want to say connected to the energy of it, of how
Mhm.
it really, I kind of want to say what it's really meant to be anyway, and connection that I have with myself. So for me to be able to always, everything always comes back to us, to your point, even
Yes. Yes.
when it the experiences that we had, because like I said, I had that profound revelation, and not that I was looking for it, because I didn't even know that it was there. And so that's something that, and so right now, as an uncoupled individual, my sexuality is just more so in exploring not the physicality of it, but it's just more so what does it mean really?
Mm. Yeah.
And then of course, there's some energies that's related to it, that's connected to it.
Mm. That's interesting. That's a very interesting perspective. Just taking time to unpack what sexuality is, what it means to you, what it has meant, all of that. That's very interesting. I like that. I hadn't thought of that that aspect of sexuality for an uncoupled person. So let
Mhm.
me let me uh wrap this up because I know that you're short on time. And I'm going to put up
Mhm.
your Instagram where people can find you. And I want you to give us any final words that we did not address about holistic health for a woman over 50 or a person over 50. Anything you'd like to address?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I really do appreciate, being here. And again, just for people to remind, Sharon D. Brown, and I'm also the founder of Self Care U Academy. And one of the things that I do want to leave people with, and which we spoke briefly about before we got on, is that like when it comes to everything, when it comes to your holistic well-being, that money, your finances, and the financial well being has a great impact. And all of those things is going to impact, the money that you have or the money that you don't have. And so to make sure that as you're learning about your mind, your body, and your spirit, but also learn about money. It's not just for the rich and wealthy, it impacts you because the amount of money that you have to eat healthy is going to impact you. So there's choices for you to, make when it comes to that. Because the other part of it, if you're not eating healthy or good in your mind and your body, then it manifests in itself in diseases and things like that. So that's the financial piece of
Mm-hmm.
it, of how it impacts that way. So don't leave the money out, and be careful what you say, but it's important for us to learn and really start looking at our finances so that we can be well in every aspect of our lives.
I think that is a whole nother podcast series. I love that. And so the next time when we focus on the energy of money and actually planning for money and having money and spending money and investing money and all of that, we're going to bring you back so that we can talk about
Yeah.
that because that is another further
Mhm.
we need to discuss that. We need to discuss that.
It,
So
it really is.
So I want to thank you so much, Sharon D. Brown, for coming on and talking to us about the 5 things that you do for your holistic health as a woman over 50. And I will see you guys next time for the next one.